Hello there. Thank you for joining me for Sampler Sunday. Today I'm excited to kick off the week with the Frog Collection, and today we'll be exploring the sampler page, which you can download for free on our website, and we'll be creating some mini collages. I've included a selection here for you to be inspired by, and here are a number of practice pieces that I've done. This one here I've framed just as is. This is solely the papers from the sampler. And then in this one, I added some floral doodles. And this one has the floral doodles as well as an inspirational phrase on it. Let's take a look at the color wheel for the Frog collection. It includes the analogous colors. So analogous means next to each other on the color wheel. It includes the orange, the yellow-orange, yellow, yellow-green, and green. And we'll be going over this as we create our first mini collage. So let's get started. Now I'll walk you through the first step, which is printing your printable. The first thing that you'll want to do is to make sure that you've opened the Frog Collection Sampler PDF. I opened mine on Preview on my Mac. So I'm going to go up to File and then Print, which opens my printer dialog box. The first thing that you'll always want to do is to make sure that your specific printer is chosen here. Here we can choose all pages because there's just one, so that's fine. Make sure you're printing in color and that the orientation is set to portrait. Now you'll go on to down to here and you'll see scale to fit, so choose that. And going back to paper size, this is going to depend on the paper that you're using and your printer. So mine defaults to US letter. I have a borderless printer, so I would choose this. And what this does is brings the paper all the way to the edges. If you don't have a borderless, you can take a look up here. I'm going to choose the regular US letter. And what happens is the paper shrinks down to fit within that white border. If you have A4 paper, you'll go down here and you can choose A4, which shrinks it to fit to that paper. And if you have an A4 borderless printer, you can choose that and that'll adjust the size to fit there. So I'm going to go ahead and choose my printer and paper, which is US letter borderless. And then I'm going to go ahead and print. All right, so here I have my sampler page, which I've already gone ahead and cut out into strips. So either using a pair of scissors or a paper trimmer, you can just separate each of these strips to get started. The other things that I have here is, this is a number of substrates. So the substrate is what we're going to be gluing the collage paper to. This is corrugated cardboard. This is a piece of chipboard. I like to buy sheets of chipboard and cut those to size. But you can also find chipboard in a number of packaging, so like crackers, cereal, beverage containers. I have some cardstock. Cardstock is a really nice thing to have around for making cards. And then this is a piece of copy paper, the same copy paper that I use to print the collage papers. All of these I've cut down to 4 inches by 4 inches. And for me, I do prefer to use the chipboard. The other things I have is a wet and dry cloth. So this is to keep my hands and my workspace clean and dry. I have my matte Mod Podge and a Mod Podge brush. I also have a scrap piece of chipboard, and I'll show you how I use that. I have some straight scissors, so these are just regular scissors. I have a pair of decorative scissors. So these, I have a whole collection of different scissors with different cuts on them. And then I have a metal ruler. And this is, I can use for ripping the pages. Now you don't need either of these. You can use the straight scissors and your hands for ripping. but I'll show you how to use those as well. So the first thing that I want to do is get my substrate, and I'm going to go ahead and choose my first piece, and it doesn't matter which one I choose. I'm going to go ahead and choose this dark green one, and I'm going to trim it. So just with a straight pair of scissors. And the way I like to apply the Mod Podge is using this scrap piece. And I will say this is a silicone mat, so I could apply it here, but I find this a little bit cleaner when I'm doing small pieces. I don't have to keep on cleaning my silicone mat. So I'm just applying the Mod Podge and then laying down the piece. And I want enough on there so it slides. And that one I did okay. It didn't slide as much as I wanted to, so maybe a little bit more with the next piece. Now when I'm creating a collage, I want to consider similarities and differences, adding contrast and to my collage, and I'll show you what I mean. So here I have a green piece, and I can look at my color wheel here. The closest to this green is a yellowish green, so that's not going to add a lot of contrast, but it'll add some. And the other difference between these two pieces of paper is the way I made them. These I created using acrylic paints. These are from sketches. So just having these next to each other is a nice variation, but you can see that the darkness is pretty similar there. If I want to continue exploring the green pieces, looking at this one's a lot lighter. It's got a little bit more yellow in it. So the contrast between these two are greater. And then if I look at my grayscale, I could add a grayscale piece, which is going to add a lot of contrast there. And then looking at the green, anything that's really far from, or two colors that are far from each other on the color wheel are going to add a lot more contrast. So this is a lot more contrast compared to this. So as I move along, I'm going to consider where I want to add contrast, where I want to add likenesses. The other way we can consider adding variation is the size of our strips. So say we're going to do all straight cuts. We could do some thin, some thick. And I have this one to show you. So this one has thin and thick stripes. So that adds some nice variation to my collage. So that's straight cuts, but we can also rip our collage papers. So this entire collage is just from ripped sheets of paper, and you can see the variation with the size and the way that these were ripped. I have one that I did with decorative cuts. I actually didn't use the decorative scissors here. I just used my straight scissors and just cut them in various ways. This one I did a variety of straight and decorative cuts, but I did this one on a diagonal. Here I have a whole bunch going on. I have some strips going this way, some this way, and then I've added little pieces throughout it. This one has mostly straight cuts. This one is a jagged cut, but I have the papers laid out this way and this way. And then this one, I did various thicknesses, but I also did the cuts in different ways. This is decorative scissors. This one's torn. This one I did decorative with my straight scissors. Have ripped there, straight and ripped. So those are all different ways to add some variety to the collage. So again, looking at the color variation, looking at the way it's cut, looking at the direction that the collage papers lay. So my first practice piece here, what I think I'm going to do is minimize perhaps the variation by picking out some of the greens. And I'm going to play with that first. So I'm going to just go ahead and decide with each piece whether I'm going to rip or cut it. And here's a rip piece. Now one side of this rip piece has the collage paper to the end. The other one has some white. And the way that I know which one's going to have the white is the hand that's steady is going to have the white, where the one that pulls is going to have it right to the edge. And I'll show you that again in a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and glue down my next piece, adding the Mod Podge, and I do want to add enough so that it slips around to where I want it. And I want that ripped edge to overlap there. So these two pieces are very similar in the shade and in the thickness. So the next piece, perhaps doing it a little bit thicker, I'm going to cut a thin strip off of it so that I can use that later. Apply my Mod Podge, so enough that it's coating it and that I can slip it around. And I'm going to keep this one thick. This one does have a fair amount of green in it. So there's still not a lot of variation. And here I'm going to go ahead and rip this. I'm going to keep this hand steady. This is going to be my ripping hand. And you can see now the white is on this side. And I'm going to lay this down. So even though these are all mostly green, there is variation in them because there's different lightnesses and darknesses, and there's some other colors mixed in. And I don't know if I'm going to have enough to do it all the way down. So maybe at this point, I'm going to shift my color. So let's look at this, and I can decide whether I want to go really far away from the green, which is orange, or go close. So maybe I'm going to shift to the yellow and looking for yellow pieces. So not as much orange, but more yellow. And this one I'm going to use my straight scissors, but I'm going to do this more decorative. Just weaving in and out with my scissors. And that's how I want to lay it down. And I'm going to get this part really thin right there. Okay. So meaning right here. And continuing with the colors that are mostly yellow. Here I can actually use the design of the collage paper. So these are little diamonds, and go in and out using the design that's already there. And setting that there. So here I've decided to continue with the yellow. I'm just showing you the range across the color wheel. If I wanted more contrast, I would, instead of putting this yellow on yellow, I would put it on yellow green perhaps, or a really dark green here, which shows a lot more contrast. So you can see how different this piece looks based on what I put it next to. But I'm going to continue here and place this down. So I'm getting variation in thicknesses of my paper, in the cuts of the paper. I want to slide that over a little bit more. And these are very similar in lightness, darkness. So you can almost not tell that that paper is there. It just really blends in. Meaning this looks like one piece of paper if you're far enough away from it. I'm going to continue picking one with mostly yellow, and here I'm going to rip it. So last time I held this thumb down and I got white on there. Here I'm going to hold this thumb down, pull up. I'm going to kind of go in and out, and you can see that since I'm holding this one, I'm getting the white on that. Now I'm going to shift to more orange here. So obviously there's greens in there too. I think I'm going to go like this. Oh, I'm going to use the ruler. I haven't shown you that in this video yet. What I like to do is use a metal ruler. I like to put the metal side down. It's got a cork back. Put it flush, and then I can rip. What this does is give a textured cut, but it's still straight. So it's not ripped like when I hand rip it. There's still a little bit of white on there, but it's a straight line, but a different look than a cut line. Okay. And for my last piece, before I do that, I'm going to just wash my hands. If I have this Mod Podge on my fingers, it's going to start sticking to the paper and pulling off some of the color. So I like to keep my hands clean and dry. And then let me consider another ripped cut. So I'm going to hold this thumb down so that I'll have the white on this side here. And there we are. So let's glue that piece down. Okay, what I'm going to go ahead and do now is cut all of this off so I can see what I have. And even these can be used. So I keep all of this. I think I have one where I created, just one moment. This one here was created solely with the cutoffs from my collages. So this is a pretty cool design right there. So that's an idea for you. And I can even play with what it would look like to place this on there. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have here. Here I did the colors in order. So in order of the color wheel. which is a pretty cool way to do it because you can just see how it just flows from this color to this color, from green to orange. Now, if I want to continue, so I didn't add any grayscales because I decided at this point that I wanted to try doing that the color in order, but I can also look at adding some now. I could add some in this direction. Sometimes it's nice to add a really dark color, which is this black, because that's really going to stand out. And you can see there versus there. So I think I'm going to add that. And I could just keep on going on, adding little pieces to different sections in the same direction. If I wanted to bring the orange to the other side, I could do that. So I could do something like that, which makes it seem like it's going from here and then continuing. Just got to get a bouncing of those two colors there, or there's two pieces of collage paper. And I'm going to trim. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to call my collage complete. I could certainly go ahead and add more in different directions, little interesting shapes. So I could pull one of these lily pads off here and pop that in there. And the lily pads are on this one, and there's one more that I used in here. This one, oh, yep, there it is. So these three have the lily pads. So I gave you a bunch of cool ideas to start with. I hope you enjoyed the session, and I hope you join me later in the week when we create mandalas, florals, and frogs with the same collage paper palette. Thank you for joining me today.